back. It looks like YouTube is live. There you go. If anybody's watching on YouTube, let me know that you're there so I can address you during the class. All right, cool. So, we have, does anybody have any questions before we start? Meanwhile, I'm going to do roll call. If you have questions, drop them now. See Brian, Robin, Ingrid, Landra, Bianca, Stephanie M, Jeffrey, David, Yvette, Lena, Fabiola, Miguel, Vanessa, Nurka, Muslima camera, please, and Erica driving, enjoying that new Kia Telluride. There you go. All right. Make sure you guys keep your cameras on so it counts towards your hours, and the cameras are on you the whole time. Otherwise, they will not count. All right. So yesterday we pretty much closed. Well, today we're going to close the national portion of real estate with property management. Depending on how this chapter goes, so I'm going to give you a heads up. This chapter is 21 pages long, well, 20 pages long, but there's a lot of stuff that's not, just like yesterday in risk management, there's a lot of stuff that's not highly tested for property management. So I'm going to try to focus on a few key points and go right through others. And depending on how it goes, because we are a day behind, so depending on how it goes, I'll just put chapter 25 right in, and then tomorrow we can do two, because the New Jersey portion, the state portion, is like I said, it's reviews of everything we've talked about, but now with a few state-specific things. So it's going to be a breeze to go right through. All right. So let's see how this goes, and if you guys have questions along the way, just let me know. Keep me posted. Or right after class, send me those messages, okay? So as far as property management, my first question for you guys before we even start in property management is, what do you think property management is? Meaning, what is the purpose, the primary purpose of property management? What do you guys believe to be the primary purpose of property management? Anybody? Somebody? Why do we do property management? What is the purpose of property management? Run the facility. Okay. Cool. Managing the property. Always Verona. I don't know why. Verona always takes over the screen when she joins. All right, let's see. Sorry, we had managing the property in absence of the owner. Okay. Take care of the property and look to profit from it. Okay. Take care of the property and collect rents and other fees. Managing the day-to-day operations. Take care of it so it does not depreciate. Manage daily operations of the property. What else? There's a lot of good things here. I mean, there's none of them are bad. I'm just going to make a few corrections, but there's a lot of good things being presented here. Right, maintenance. Okay, so property management will be for maintenance. Okay. Yes, maintenance, daily operations. Make sure it doesn't depreciate. All right, there's more people. Come on, there's more answers to come in. Responding to tenant complaints. There you go. Okay, cool. Make the building money. Okay. And Erica just dropped the phone while driving. Focus on driving, Erica. You don't have to answer. Is who manages the real estate operations. There's a lot of things, Stephanie. That's right. There's a lot of things. Oversee the property and safety. So we're cops too. Yes. Security guards and all. All right. So, see, financial performance. Okay. Cool. Jeffrey, camera. Verona, camera. All right, so here's the thing. Property manager involves pretty much all the things you guys have been saying so far. All right, so let's go over a few of these. And I'm just going to correct a couple of things here. So right here, Stephanie M says, run the facility. Okay. So instead of the owner doing it, so let me correct what Robin said here and tie it into what Stephanie said. Instead of the owner being there, right, then there's a property manager. So I wouldn't say in absence of the owner, I would say instead of the owner. Because it's not like the owner is absent. I can be there and have a property manager at the same time. But traditionally, a property manager, like Robin is writing here and Stephanie M., they are an extension of the owner. So together with the owner, or instead of the owner, depending on how the agreement is done, the property manager takes over, runs, and manages the property. They take care of the property, and they do not look to profit from it. They look to increase the profit from it. Okay? So the manager does not profit from it because the owner is the one that profits. Right? So these are the small corrections I'm putting here. The point is great, just small things. Like here, take care of the property, right? And collect rents and other fees. Correct. Managing the day-to-day operations. Correct. Taking care of it so it does not depreciate. Well, there's always going to be depreciation, but let me correct you on this. There's always depreciation, but making sure it appreciates. That's the goal. Depreciation is always going to be there because the material, as we went over, the material over time loses value. So with the maintenance that everybody's been talking about before, yes, we'll reduce the depreciation as far as loss of value, of market value, but for tax purposes, it's always going to be there. So I want to make sure you understand depreciation is a good thing for tax purposes, right? But definitely maintain to keep up the value or increase the value of the property. Daily operations, we already called Andra. You guys are on point with that one. Maintenance, Robin. Responding to tenant complaints. Yes, it's that shield that protects the owner from having to deal with tenant complaints. So again, we go back to what Robin said, in absence of the owner. No, it's just that shield. So instead of the owner, okay? Make the building money. So we go back to, Miguel said the same thing. It's not making the building money because the building doesn't earn. It's not us that earn either. It's the owner. So making sure the building increases in value and income. So yes, so make sure the building generates income, right? And is the one that manages. We got that. A lot of things, yes, all of these are overseeing the property and safety. See, on this one, Yvette, let me piggyback on this. We are responsible for hiring and firing for employees, contracting for services, including potential safety hazards, right? So we are responsible for that, all of that, if we are the property managers. And again, as I was mentioning from Stephanie M. and from Miguel, financial performance. So making sure that the building is receiving enough income and performing adequately so that the owner profits from it. Not us, and not the building directly, but making sure the building does go through all these upgrades and maintenance. Very good. So that is a property management. And since you guys understand that, we're going to skip to the next chapter. Good? But that's what it is. That's what a property manager is. There's a few managing functions that also come with it. Everything you guys just said is right here. We need to report to our owner. So the daily data opportunities, we're the ones that report to him and say, or her, and say, hey, listen, this is what the building's been doing. Performance, management, damages that needed to be repaired. All these things will be either daily, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, whatever way we determine in our management contract. Budgeting. So the owner says, this is how much you can spend on these things without letting me know, right? And then if it's above a certain amount, you need my approval, right? So you are responsible for properly budgeting according to the income and the expenses, right? Renting. A property manager might be responsible for renting. Now, if you're a salaried employee of mine, you might not need a license, as you guys know by now. You're an extension of me. But if you're a separate company open specifically for property management of other people's properties, then in most states, a license is required. Inclusive, a broker's license is required to open up that particular property management company. So the renting portion might have some restrictions, or leasing portion. For property maintenance, definitely, we're the ones responsible, like I said, for hiring and firing employees, so superintendents and stuff. Property manager could be a superintendent himself or herself, but also contracting for services to maintain the property. Construction level and risk management. We talked about insurance. We talked about assignment of risk, which is insurance, retention of risk, so knowing that something's going to happen and prepare for it no matter what. Reduction of risk and all that stuff. So risk management came with it. And again, just like yesterday under risk management, this is a chapter that's more dedicated to property management or even for a brokerage course. So some things we need to briefly touch, others we go right through. Robin's asking how much of your, like my brokerage company? So we are not, we've had a few offers of merging with a property management, but we're not doing property management yet. It's not our main focus. Our main focus is residential. We do have some commercial. Like I said, we've had offer to merge with a few, or them merging with us for the property management purposes, but we're not doing it yet. It's not our main goal yet. Okay. Again, you need to master one thing before you can do others. And I prefer to master our growth right now as a newly open company. Manage our growth in terms of residential and what we're fully experts in, then try to branch out too fast and then not being able to do anything. So, hope that answers. Next thing. So, property management is a specialty within the real estate profession. Many states, as I said, require persons who manage real estate on behalf of other persons or entities to be licensed as real estate brokers. There's the individual property manager, and usually a real estate broker who manages properties for one or more owners may belong to a small property management firm devoted to full-time property management. So, like I said, some states require you actually to be a broker, a licensed broker, in order to do property management. There are some brokerage companies that exist solely for that. They don't do sales, right? So if you wind up working for a company that does property management only, you might not be able to do sales at all because that's all they do. Can you do referrals? If your broker allows you to, like if you have leads and your broker allows you to do referrals, you can refer to an active agency. Active meaning active sales agency, right? So you can work with another one. Individual building manager usually manages a single large property. Maybe employed by a property manager or directly by an owner, or may or may not have a real estate license. And then a resident manager. Okay, this is usually for residential properties only. Yvette, I thought you were going to type something. Forget it? Okay. Did I answer or you just... Okay, cool. So lives on the property and may be employed by like a superintendent, right? Lives on the property. We give him an apartment, we give him a salary, and that's it. Takes care of everything on the property. Now, a manager has a fiduciary relationship. Haven't we heard this word fiduciary in the past? Right. So fiduciary relationship means that I owe specific duties to. Elena, can you help me here? Who do I owe specific duties to? She's already smirking. And again, and again, and again. Pal. Pal. Oh, it was autocorrect. Yeah. Sucks. Anyway. I'm gonna keep messing with you, by the way. Can an agent who helps someone buy a building? Huh? Oh, can you help? Okay, so Erica, you're asking if you can help somebody buy a building that you're going to manage later? If that's your agreement, but the thing is, remember, you're a salesperson. So property management companies, like I said, in most states, including the state of New Jersey, the property management company has to be created or opened by a broker. So if you're going to be a property manager for the owner that you helped purchase the building, then you have to be a salaried employee versus a salesperson. You understand? So I can help you buy, but then I become your employee and manage the property. And then the agreement is between you guys, because there's a lot of conflict of interest there. You're going to help them rent, right? So you're going to get commission from it from your company, or are you going to get paid a salary from the owner? Where is it going to be? Will they allow you outside business practices? Meaning, can you work as a salesperson and manage my building? Right? Those are the questions. So can you help somebody buy and then become the manager? It's a choice. Okay. So where was I? Okay, so the manager has a fiduciary relationship with the principal, right? In general, is charged with producing the greatest possible net return. So this is the best thing ever for the owner. The job of a property manager, the real job, is to get the greatest possible net return. How do we do this? Right? So that's why I was asking, what does a property manager do? And you might have a question like this in the school or state exam. What does a property manager do? Get the highest possible return in a property. And how do we do that? By all the things you guys described here in the chat. So all these good things that you guys said, they're all correct, right? By doing all these things, you're making sure that the property brings more or the most amount of money possible, right? And then we take our expenses, and Mr. or Mrs. owner of the building or LLC, whatever, here's the highest net return. I increased your return by X amount of dollars or X percentage since last year. And next year, I hope it's even better, right? So you're going to manage the property to get the greatest possible return on my investment, while safeguarding the value of the investment for the owner or investor, right? At the same time, the manager has some responsibilities to the tenants who want the best value, right? And the best space for their money. So there's two sides to this. One of the sides is your principal is the owner or the company that owns the building, right? The investor that owns the building, right? That's the principal. But on the other side, if you want to be a successful manager, then you have the tenants. If the tenants are not happy, the owner is not going to be happy. Because if the tenants are not happy, there's no payments. If there's no payments, there's no highest net return. Does that make sense? So that for a property manager, there has to be a clear balance between your fiduciary duties, right? Clear balance between your fiduciary duties. So let's go over this. Chris, what happened there? All grown up already? I know it's not the babies. That would be awesome, right? Imagine the twins being born and already sitting down, and you know, that'd be crazy. Already coming out on their phones. I know you're picturing that now. Gonna go into labor already with 2 smartphones. Here, girls. All right, so professional managers are therefore much more than rent collectors, as I was saying. They need the technical expertise in marketing, accounting, finance, and construction. Property managers often specialize in one type of property. Again, like I said, day one, mentioned again the second week, and even last week, right? The real estate practice really comes down to what is your niche? What is your focus? Even as a property manager, you might deal with apartments, you might deal with offices. You don't want to deal with tenants, like residential tenants. You want to deal with office, a lot easier, less complaints, right? Maybe retail, maybe industrial. Industrial is like set it and forget it, like it's there. Until the factory goes out of business, do you have to do anything? Pretty much nothing, because they maintain the property, right? It's a factory, and so on. So it could be farms, single families, anyway. But you need to specialize in that type of property. Whatever the property type and management agreement, the manager's work involves leasing, managing, marketing, and maintaining the property. The services of manager provides us can be seen to fall into 3 areas: financial, physical, administrative. Now let me ask you something. If I'm handling in more than one capacity, what type of agent am I? You guys remember this? If I have more than one power, if I have some powers, because as a property manager, I don't have full powers. I cannot help somebody sell the property without their consent, right? I need their consent to sell. So there's 3 types of agency agreements. You guys remember? Full powers, some powers, and one power. I ignored one answer on purpose because I was still giving info. So I'll give an opportunity for it. Does with a question mark does not change the answer. So with question mark, without question mark, we changed the answer, right? No. What type? So we have universal agents, we have general agents, and we have special agents. What type of agency do you guys think we have when it comes to property management? Guys, don't forget to put your question marks if you want to change your answer. I'm sure you guys are going to find one. Okay. All right. So universal agent is somebody that has full powers to represent somebody else in a legal capacity, legally binding capacity. So universal agent can do whatever on behalf of the principal, right? Without their authorization, because that authorization was given previously. So I don't need to call you and say, hey, can I do this or can I do that? No, I'm doing it, and it's in the best of your interest, right? We have general agent. General agent is like a property manager. I handle more than one thing, so I'm not a special agent. I handle more than one thing, but I don't have full powers. I'm like the in-between, right? So a general agent handles a broad range of matters. They don't have full powers. They don't handle one thing. They handle several things on behalf of the principal. So the correct answer would have been general agents like Nurka, Fabiola, and Miguel wrote. Okay, so I know Elena, all she was doing is like throwing me to the edges, and like the extreme right here, it's universal, here is special. Bruno, you know what I'm saying. The question mark is to say it's the one in between, the general one. That's what I wanted to say. Right, Elena? Say yes. Okay, cool. I know that's what you meant. She still writes it. Jeffrey, I'm learning how to translate. So I know you already know. As an instructor, I have to learn my students, understand them, so I know what the answers are. But you can always help once in a while, just saying. Like, I didn't see. Let me see. Did I have his help? Oh. I didn't have your help, so just saying. All right. So the point was, why did I ask about what type of agency? Because you handle more than one thing. You have a financial capacity, physical capacity, so the physical building, right? And administrative capacity. So you have to, oh, thanks. So you have to be able to handle these specific functions, duties, and responsibilities. And these will all be in the management agreements. Now, what are the functions? So the financial reporting to the principal is fundamental responsibility to property manager. Like I told you earlier, it could be monthly, quarterly, or annually. And obviously, we're talking about finances. We're talking about monies, budgets, money coming in, money going out, and what do we still need to handle? Like the roof needs to be replaced in the near future. That all goes into the financial reporting, which has everything to do with the operating budget and the capital expenditures. Every time you see operating anything is to keep the lights on. So if it says operating budget, is the cost to keep the operations going or keep the lights on, as I usually say. Because if you don't have lights in a business, it's tough for you to operate, right? So it's the operating budget is based on the expected expenses and revenues. And this is a necessity for management, okay? Income, expenses, right? We talked about this. That's part of, and I'm going to just briefly go right through it. Income and expenses goes traditionally into the operating budget. And then capital expenditures. You'll find that under agency, Robin. Under agency, so it's chapter 11, national agency. I'm getting there. It's the first time teaching this book, but I'm getting there. I'm going to memorize these chapters again, like I used to. So, capital expenditures. Capital expenditures are not the costs for the daily activities. They're not the cost for the monthly expenses. They're not the cost for the yearly expenses. Capital expenditures is, for instance, if my car breaks down unexpectedly, it's a capital expenditure. It's money to have aside. If I need to fix the roof, it's a huge amount, right? So capital or larger amounts. It's a huge amount to do the whole roof. Let's say $30,000. Can we do it today? Probably not. Can we do it a month from now? Probably not. Can we do it a year from now? Probably not. When can we do it? Well, being a good property manager, you're going to determine how long do you need based on income and expenses, right? So you need to figure out the cash flow, as we went over the other day, right? Based on the income and expenses, you're going to figure out how much money you've been able to put aside for these capital expenditures. So I need a new roof, $30,000. When can we do it? Well, based on my experience, based on the money that's coming in, the money that's going out, maybe in 3 years or 4 years from now. Okay, so let's say 4 years, that's 48 months. $30,000 divided by 48 months, that's how much I need to put aside every month to be able to fix that roof. Will the roof last those years? If so, then we don't need to reallocate monies for the capital expenditures. Whatever we're saving every month is enough, right? So that's the capital expenditures. And cash reserves is where I was telling you, like, hey, if something happens that's unexpected, goes into that. Already explained that. We need to control vacancies. And why would you have, you guys know what vacancy is, right? Vacancy means the apartment is empty. How do we control vacancies? Well, one of the reasons that vacancies might exist is the rent is too high or even too low. We don't do proper marketing. The management quality, actually, this one right here is one of the biggest problems. Meaning you are one of the biggest problems. If you're the property manager, there's a lot of people. It's like going to a restaurant that has great food, but the service sucks. Like, why would I go back, right? If I'm going to be treated, not going to be treated like I expected, if I'm not going to be treated like I expected when I go to a restaurant, doesn't matter how good the food is, right? I'm not going back there. Service is key. In some places, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but in some places, when I go out to eat, for instance, I want to be pampered, meaning I don't want to be taking care of myself. I want you, look, if you could cut the food and feed me, do it, right? That's the point that I'm trying to get at. Obviously, no, that's extreme. But the point is, if you go out to eat, don't expect me to cook. Don't expect me to serve myself. Like, I used to work in restaurant business. That's why I can say what I'm about to say, right? Don't expect me to pour my own wine, my own beverage, whatever it is. You're there to be a waiter. There's a reason I came out here, right? So if the service is not there, then I'll just order the food and I'll eat it at home. You understand? So I decided to go out for a reason. Go eat, relax, enjoy the meal without having to worry about the stress that comes with it, right? If the service is great and the food is okay, obviously if it's bad food, you're not going back there. But if the food is okay, yeah, I'll come back. I love the service. It's about service. When I used to work in the restaurant business, if I saw a client grabbing the bottle of wine, I would run to that table. I would knock everybody out the way so I can get to that table, right? And pour the wine or whatever it was that my clients were drinking, pour it for them. I would actually take it out of their hand and say, no, you didn't come here to work. I work for you. And this is how I used to get my 20, 25, sometimes 30, even 35% tips sometimes, right? So I used to work the clients by providing that service. Whether the food was good or not, a lot of clients came back and specifically asked for me. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best. There's other people where I used to work that had way more clients. But my clients got used to me basically because of the way I joked with them and I always treated them. Do you understand? Management quality is key. It is customer service. You're not managing for the owner only. You're managing for the customers. And the customers are the tenants. If they're unhappy, right? Doesn't matter what you have in the facility. If they're unhappy, they will leave. So again, management quality is key. And it brings to what I was just saying, poor tenant retention program. Okay? Not if you're going to McDonald's. Really? Listen. If I go to McDonald's and that meal's not done right, I am going to complain. I don't care where it is. Right? Right? I'm not of a McDonald's fan anymore. I used to. There was a while back. That's the only thing that was open when I would finish my shifts. Right? But if it's not right, it's not right. Then I'll tell them, hey, listen, what happened here? Right? Simple. All right. Next, image and appearance problems. Obviously, again, if the location needs some type of repairs or maintenance, it could cause vacancies, okay? Or it could simply be the market itself. You guys remember the cycles? We talked about real estate markets and how the cycles work, right? There might be a high market vacancy rate because there's too many constructions out there. So now they stop the constructions until population reduces the vacancy. So this one is out of your control. But everything else, it's up to management. Okay? So the marketing portion, common sense, you need to find some type of marketing that will attract people. Again, this goes for everything and it goes without say. Billboards, brochures, flyers, meetings, presentations, networking. Networking is key depending on the type of business. For residential, networking is not what's really going to change your life. But for commercial, for retail, for Industrial, networking is key. Okay? Newspaper ads, radio, television advertising, signs, tenant referrals. This is another one. Referrals is my world. All right? The different businesses that I have, they run on referrals. That's how we build a large network. Okay? Referrals are key. And I go back to what I was saying before. How can you get referrals? Right? How can you get referrals if your management quality sucks? Right? No referrals. People will leave. They'll never come back. Okay, so very important, referrals. How do we set the rents, guys? How do we set rents? Anybody? How do we figure out the rents? By getting comparables. And where do we get comparables? Well, if my property is a 100-unit apartment building and there's no other 100-unit apartment building, where do I get comparables? Well, the cool thing about property management is that you're going to look just for similar type of buildings. It's not about the amount of units, not like a sales comparison where we're looking for 1 to 4 and compare it that way. No. Renting is a type of property. So if it's residential rentals, we're going to look for 10, 20, 30 units. It doesn't matter. Let's look at what they have compared to what we have, right? So spying, comps. And of course, like I said, make adjustments in these differences. Selecting the tenants. Now, guys, this is true. This is true for any type of business. It doesn't matter if you're a property manager. It doesn't matter if you're in sales, right? This, what I'm going to tell you right now, applies to everything. Ready? Ready? In marketing, we talk about this. And no, not the movies, not the cartoons, but knowing your avatar. What is the avatar in terms of marketing? Avatar is your ideal client. So the same way you need to know your ideal client, you need to understand what your ideal client wants and needs, right? So one of the key things, like if you guys really want to make money, find the need of your avatar. So when you become specialized in a particular type of property, right? Let's say residential, then you know how to market to people looking for residential. If you specialize in commercial, right? Let's say office, then you're going to specialize in marketing to these people as well. So what is your ideal avatar going to look for? They're going to make sure that the space that you have to offer meets their needs for size, configuration, location, and quality, right? So if I have something to market, right? Let's say my phone, I use my phone a lot, right? If I have something to market, this phone that I have is like a mini computer. So you're not going to advertise this phone to just anyone. You're going to advertise mainly for people that have a business. There's going to be people that don't have a business but just like to have a phone like this regardless, right? So those are the outsiders, and yes, we will leave an open market for them. But I'm going to specialize in people that are business owners and say, listen, this Samsung Note that I have here is like a mini computer. It comes with a pen. You can easily sign stuff. You can easily draw stuff. You can integrate with your computer, plug and play. So you just connect this to a monitor and it becomes an actual computer for you. You don't even need a computer. That's all you need. So I can advertise this in different ways, mainly for business owners. You understand? So knowing what my client needs is one of the most important things. So I know if what I have fits their criteria. If not, then you're putting them in the wrong place. Would everybody need this phone? No, not at all. Okay? The tenant being able to pay for the space. So again, figure out your ideal avatar for the type of property you're trying to market. If a person makes $1,000 a month, as an example, but the rental is $3,000 a month, then it's clear that you want to exclude the advertisement to people that make less than, let's say, 2 times the rent, as an example. You guys understand? And that's not discrimination because it's financial ability to pay. It doesn't fall under discrimination. You're not blocking the marketing based on their financial, based on their race, gender, color, religion, national. No, that's not what you're doing. But you're filtering based on financials. Next, make sure the tenant's business is compatible with that of other tenants. If I'm going to bring a business, let's say to a strip mall, right? If I'm going to bring a business that's going to affect everybody else around, do you think that's going to be wise? You're going to gain one customer, but maybe lose all the others, right? That's not wise, right? And make sure there's room for expansion if the tenant needs for space is likely to grow. So again, we go back to understanding and knowing your avatar, right? So when we talked about financials, when we talk about investments, if you guys remember, every investment goal is different. Mine is a particular investment goal. You might have a different one. So I need to know you as an investor before I say, hey, this is good for you. You understand? For estate planning, for life insurance, we do that a lot. We sit down and talk about the financial needs that the person has, the wants versus the needs, right? We sit down and say, okay, this is what you want, but this is what you need right now. Sometimes the wants and needs could be matched right away, but I can guarantee you most of the times the answer is no. What you want is great. That's not what you need right now, right? In my professional advice. So knowing your client, your ideal client, that's what we call avatar. If you ever take a course especially in social media marketing, they're going to address avatar a lot, okay? Knowing your client, marketing to their specific needs. So it's almost like doing like reverse engineering something. In this case, is reverse marketing. Understand who you're targeting and make them come to you versus you just constantly hitting them. Let the social media do that for you. They'll come to you. And there's numerous forms of doing that. It could be using a blog, right? You're just advertising an article for somebody specific, let's say for residential. And you're talking about how the market is changing in Newark, as an example. How in Newark we have a lot of luxury apartments that just popped up. Right now I'm advertising to New Yorkers. And I'm showing a blog about Newark only in New York groups. You understand? Because that's the type of client I'm trying to bring and can't afford to live here in Newark now. Right? So understand your market and reverse engineer. Throw info and let them come to you. Right? Now you start filtering those that really want. And I'm just teaching you about social media right now. And you and you drop the cost per lead. Right? So instead of costing you $5, $6, $7, maybe even $10 per lead, you just dropped it to $1. Because all you're doing is blogging. All you're doing is putting articles out there for the people that want it in the groups that they look for already. So now they see your info, they want to know more, click on it, comes to your site, you grab their info, and boom, done. So again, reverse it. What I just told you right now, it's worth, I don't know, roughly $2,000 to $3,000 a month in savings. I accept donations. Collecting rents, that's the next one. Collecting rents. The lease agreement should clearly specify the terms of rental payment, and the manager must establish a system of notices and records as well as method of collecting rents on schedule. So one of the things you want to do also is figure out, again, your client's financial ability. That's one of the things. And I think to collect rents, the easiest thing to do is making sure that that client, again, fits the space, has a financial ability to pay, right? And usually there will be no problems. Is it possible that there's exceptions? Is it possible that there's people that actually like lose their job or thanks, Ms. Lima. Yeah, I noticed, I saw that earlier. He's isolated now. He's in quarantine. Yep. So Muslima just wrote that Cristiano Ronaldo tested for positive for COVID. Yep. They did it on purpose, so Portugal doesn't win the league. That's what it is, the championship. Anyway, it's a scam, I tell you. Anyway, so where was I? So collecting rents, it's very important you guys go through proper procedures to pre-qualify your client, including checking, doing background checks, doing credit checks, and even sometimes going after the previous landlord and making sure that that person had a good record or report with the landlord. All right, so very important. Maintaining tenant relationships, I think we already addressed that, right? If you have a good relationship with the tenants, most likely they'll happily stay, unless, of course, the property has ridiculous conditions. Legal issues, fair housing, we already talked discrimination. ADA, if you guys remember, is Americans with Disability Act, so mainly for commercial properties, so 5 units or more fall into this. And it's where you have to make reasonable accommodations, right, for people with disabilities. If it's something that could have been done easily in your property, then why haven't you yet? That's the question when it comes to ADA. And ECOA, or Equal Credit Opportunity Act, means everybody's entitled to apply for a rental, right? Because pull the credit, right? So everybody's entitled to apply for a rental regardless of their color, religion, national origin, gender, familial status, and so on. Okay, so those are the 3. Again, guys, I'm going as fast as I can because only a few things you need to focus for state exam. Physical maintenance, I already addressed that. Obviously, you want to maintain. The maintenance objectives fall into different aspects, right? But generally, it's to maintain the value of the property or increase the prospective value of the property. How do we do that? Routine maintenance, common sense, by doing regular inspections, making sure that all mechanical systems, heating, air conditioning, and so on, are in good conditions. Regularly cleaning the common areas, doing minor repairs, and supervision of purchasing of, obviously, material in this case. Preventive maintenance falls into that too. I talked about the roof being replaced. Corrective maintenance, if there's an issue that needs to be corrected, like in this case, talking about a boiler developing a leak, a unit, AC unit that might break down. And then it comes down to maintenance contracting. So I told you earlier that one of the things that a property manager is responsible for is hiring and firing employees, but also contracting for services. Here, both come into play. The question is, when do you contract for services, right? And when should you hire an employee? So this depends largely in the type of property you have. If it's a 2-family, right, and you have somebody managing your 2-family, is it worth hiring an employee to manage the property? No, unless you have a bunch of 2 families, right, or smaller units, right? Unless you have a bunch of them, it doesn't make sense. So you contract for service whenever needed. But if you have a 100-unit apartment building, what do you guys think? 100-unit apartment building, where the most common problem is going to be plumbing, for instance. Should we consider hiring a superintendent, for instance, that has a plumbing license? Should we? Having somebody on staff to handle most of these problems? And the answer is most likely yes. So everything has to do on the building type and size, the tenant's needs, and budgetary constraints. So we have to decide when to hire for service, or, when to hire an employee or contract for services. Okay. Tenant improvements, we talked about that in leases. Tenants can, if it's commercial tenants, usually we put that build out responsibility on the tenant, but there could be a shared responsibility as well. On residential, can the tenant improve the property? Can the tenant make changes to the property? Subject to the restrictions in the lease and to the tenant's, the landlord's specific written approval. Yes. We talked about renovations, how the property manager should be responsible for those renovations, how the property manager should make sure that the property has the upkeep and doesn't lose functionality of certain things. Like functionality is it's no longer desired. If you guys remember, there's 3 different types of obsolescences or depreciation, right? We have physical depreciation if there's damages, functional depreciation or obsolescence if it's no longer usable like that, not desirable anymore like that. Like I think I told you guys about living room and dining room. We can convert one of them into a bedroom, right? And then there's external obsolescence, if you guys remember from appraisals, which is stuff that's outside of the property. So I cannot control those, right? Both physical and functional are curable or incurable. And then external or economic obsolescence, it's almost always incurable. We talked about environmental concerns in the previous chapter, ADA as well. Risk management. So under risk management, guys, if you have any questions, put the question mark and let me know. I just think most of these have been pretty much like a review of everything we've been talking about so far. Okay, so let me know. All right, so risk management strategies. We just talked about it, right? We just talked about it in the previous chapter. We have avoidance. We talked about it. Reduction, transference, and retention. Avoidance is it easy to remove the moving through. Handling trust funds. Gave the answer right here. Boom. To the escrow account. So that when they leave, we return that money. Go. Faster, faster. Oh, I just answered it? Okay, cool. Brittany, you're sideways. Barely see you. Had to be. Brittany, don't let Kieran take you into the wrong habits. He was always doing something other than in class, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so make sure you focus, because he wasn't focused. Just saying. Anyway. Did you activate your license yet? He's in the process still. Okay. All right, let's see what we got. What's up with that, Erica? How often does that happen? What, being in the process or what I'm going to address now? All right, so Nirka, you put it in an escrow account and the interest in the money earned is for the tenants. Yes. So it goes from state to state, the requirements. But if money is put into an escrow account, it's supposed to be, in most states, it's supposed to be an interest-bearing account, and all the money that's earning interest belongs to other people. So if it belongs to other people, you must return the interest that's due to that particular tenant. It's not your money. When somebody gives you a secure deposit, it's not your money. All right, so next we have the management agreement. What is the management agreement? Pretty much, it's the document that explains what are your duties and obligations, how long your employment is going to be, right? So here it says property managers are general agents, liability, and all that stuff. So that's what it is. The management agreement is the document that stipulates your grounds for authority. What can you do or not do on behalf of the landlord? It's going to include the names of the parties, property description, for how long is it going to be, what is the purpose, with the owner's purpose with this property, responsibilities, authority, budget, allocation of costs, reporting, compensation. So every document has to have an equivalent statement, HUD statement or equivalent, concerning availability to all people. What does the landlord do? Guys, we already went over this. The landlord collects the benefits, right, of you managing, which is the highest net returns possible, right? The landlord wants to make sure that the agent, so the property manager, is doing the right thing, right, and has the right to enter and inspect properties, to hire and fire staff. So everything that we just went over, the landlord is the one that makes the ultimate decision of how far you can go as a manager. Again, depending on your authority, limited authority, there's things you can and cannot do. And here's a sample management agreement. We're going to skip it all. And we're going to get into leases. Okay. Under leases. Again, there's a lot of stuff that's state specific, but there's different lease types which are commonly known. Okay. One of them is the lease for years. And the lease for years is the most complicated one to understand. The lease for years, or estate for years, because a lease is a leasehold. You guys remember what a freehold is? You guys remember freehold? Let me know. So we did talk about all these. I'm just going to, again, go briefly through it. But do you remember what a freehold was? The difference between freehold and leasehold? Let me know in the chat. I got it. I know how to translate you already. Most of it. So enjoys the full benefit of the bundle of rights. So we're talking about ownership. Okay? Ownership. Where a leasehold, yes, own versus rent. So where a leasehold is for a limited period of time or with less than full rights. So you have some rights. Very good. So freehold, free of any holds, you are the owner during that period of time. You are the full owner of the property. You can sell the property, you can give the property, you can mortgage the property. You can do pretty much whatever you want, subject to restrictions imposed by the previous owner, right? So that's a freehold. The leasehold is you're going to rent for a year, you're going to rent for 6 months. Hey, maybe month to month. We'll see how this goes, right? So that's a leasehold. The moment you see leasehold, it involves tenants. And as a quick recap, under leasehold, we have estate for years or at least 4 years. And if you guys remember, even though it says 4 years, this is the most complicated one to remember. Even though it says 4 years, the key feature of a leasehold 4 years is that it has a definite period of time. What does that mean? It means there is a check in, check out period. So if it's a 1-year lease, we're stipulating today on October 13th that we will leave the property by October 12th of 2021 unless something changes in the conditions, like we renew the lease, for instance. Okay? But as of right now, I'm telling you, for 1 year, I'm going to be here. After that, I don't know. We'll see. But there's a check-in, there's a check-out. The periodic lease is from period to period. So month to month, could be a week to week, could be even a year to year. It could be a semi-annual renewal lease. So every 6 months, it automatically renews. So while this one automatically ends, unless nobody does anything, this one automatically renews as long as either party does not issue a notice. So as a landlord, can I say, hey, at the end of the month, so by next month, I need you out. Can I do it? Well, it's a month to month. It's not a long-term obligation, right? Can you tell me, hey, landlord, by the end of the month, we're leaving? As long as we have enough notice according to whatever the lease says, sure. At will is with the consent. So if you ever see these ones, is with consent, right? And at sufferance is without the lessor's permission. So I'm suffering because you're still there. All right, you guys remember all this stuff, right? Yes? Okay, cool. You're being honest, right? All right. Now, getting into the different types of leases, we have gross lease. Now, what is a gross lease? A gross lease is one where you make them monthly payment and that's it. The landlord is the one that pays for the property operating expenses. Okay, so in the gross lease, you have a fixed rent. You have a fixed rent. What does that mean? It does not change. It's $1,500, $1,500 every single month until the landlord either increases at the end of at the anniversary, right? Or you decide to you want to be nice and pay a little bit more. Totally up to those two conditions. Other than that, same across the board. Where do we find these? Usually in residential leases. Okay. The next one is the net lease. If you have a paycheck, there's a gross pay, right? The gross pay is the full amount that you wish you got, right? But then there's the net pay. And the net pay is after what? After deductions. So in the gross lease, the landlord is like receiving a paycheck. They received the $1,500 and they wish they would keep the $1,500, right? But then they are responsible for the property charges. So that's taxes, insurance, maintenance, and so on. So those are the deductions, and they walk away with less than the gross. They walk away with less than that. In a net lease, it's almost like being a 1099. 1099 is an independent contractor. So you as the tenant will pay $1,000 a month, plus now you do your own taxes, so you pay your own expenses, right? Your own utilities, your own insurance. So the net lease is where you pay rent plus some or all of the operating expenses. So a net lease, you pay some or all of the expenses. Like here where I'm at, we pay an X amount of dollars every single month, but then we're responsible for a portion of the taxes, a portion of the insurance, and a portion of the maintenance. So we're responsible for common areas, especially. We find these mainly in office and industrial. Residential, you don't find that many. Okay? Guys, stop me at any time if you have questions. The next one is the percentage lease. And the percentage lease is very similar to the net lease, with a little twist. Percentage, the rent is not fixed, but depends on the income that the business generates. So pretty much I'm telling you, hey, it's $1,000 a month, and then every time your business goes above $30,000 in gross sales, I want 5% of that, whichever is less. So there's a different types of combinations here. It could be whichever is less. It could be $1,000 plus, right? Whatever you make, and so on. But I'm asking for a percentage of your business because I'm investing in your business. By charging you a lesser monthly rental rate, I expect your business to make a lot of money. And by making a lot of money, because I invested in you, I'm charging you less, right? I expect that return. So again, it's based on business revenue. We find this more in retail. With that, the owner has to let the landlord to have access to the business property. All right, it's going to be some type of arrangement where you're going to have open books, yeah. So I'm not entitled to your business, but I'm entitled to know what your business does. So I guess I just answered that, Muslima. I answered to. So yeah, it's more like I know what you're doing. You have to. All right. Next, graduated lease. Oh. Waiting. So in the mall, like Shore Hills, each store releases their books to the mall owner. There will be some type of arrangement, yes. If that's the type of agreement that they've made, yes. There will be some type of arrangement. Maybe a quarterly profit and loss, maybe semi-annually, maybe yearly, but they're explain the type of revenue that the business had. Yep. All right, the next one is graduated lease. So graduated lease means that it gradually increases at specified times. I know mall stores pay rent because if stores don't close on time. Sorry, I'm not understanding. Not understanding the statement here. For what we're saying. So they do pay rent. I'm not saying they don't pay rent. They do have restrictions. I'm not saying that they don't. What I was saying in a percentage lease is that the landlord is expecting to potentially make more money by investing in you. Investing in you how? By giving you a lower monthly rental right now and expecting the future benefit of your business growth, right? So instead of you paying me $1,500, pay me $1,000. And hopefully your business is going to do so great that over the next few months or years, I will collect more than the $500 loss that I'm having every month in the beginning. So that's pretty much the idea behind it. Okay. Next thing we have is, so sorry, I skipped this right here. The lease should set forth what's excluded or excluded in the lease property, like what can you use or not use. Like I might offer a first floor or a ground floor apartment, but you don't have access to the backyard. You don't have access to the garage or the driveway, right? I can restrict those things. What can you use or not use? The lease should also have clear rules about making alterations. If the tenant is not satisfied with an item that is part of the property, the lease may provide the tenant to make changes only with permission, as I mentioned earlier, or with the obligation to return the premises to the original condition on termination. Or, as it is tradition here in New Jersey, for instance, any alterations made to fixtures become property of the landlord. So you want to make changes in my property? Go ahead. Make the changes. Whatever you do is now mine. So unless we had something in writing that allows you to do whatever you're going to do, then whatever changes you made, they're now mine. Okay? Trade fixtures, however, trade fixtures. By definition, belong to the tenant and can be removed when the tenant leaves. Why? Because trade fixtures are for business purposes. So the landlord knows if I'm renting to a salon, for instance, they're going to install, right? They're going to install chairs. They're gonna put they're gonna need a lot of plumbing and electrical additions to the property, right? When these are installed, the owner knows that it's going to be removed as well. So usually, trade fixtures are exempt from what I just read before. This applies more to residential. Like, for instance, I have 1, 2, 3 TVs installed, okay? These are right on the wall just in this room. So I have more across the whole office. But right here, just in this room, I have 3 TVs installed. Do you think I put these TVs for the owner to benefit when I leave? No, I put it because I need it for business purposes. And the owner knows about it. So again, if it's for business purposes, trade fixtures or tools of the trade, they can be removed when the lease, before the lease ends. If none of these are removed, and this is true in whatever the conditions might be, whether it's residential or commercial, right? If these are not removed, by the time the lease ends, then the landlord, again, might keep the property. So if I don't remove these before our lease expires, the TVs stay behind. Simple. Yvette, can you also put in writing the things that things cannot be changed? Absolutely. Traditionally, what will be is, if you are to change something in my property, only with landlord permission. So most leases, that's what they say. So unless you come to me and say, hey, Bruno, I want to make changes here, is it okay with you? Right? Unless you come to me and we put it in writing, then no, you cannot make changes. But if you do, and I like it, I like the changes, do I have to pay you for it? That's what we're saying. No, you altered my property without my consent. So if I want to be one of those great landlords that we know are out there, right? I could literally say, hey, Yvette, thanks for what you did. It looks great, looks amazing. But I'm not going to credit your rent, and I'm not going to pay you for what you did. No. Because you did it without my permission. So automatically becomes mine. Again, unless it's a business. Fabiola is asking, is that like personal property? Yeah, trade fixtures are considered business personal property. So yes, treated as personal property. Very good. Okay, reversionary rights of owners. You guys remember this? Reversionary rights? Anybody? Where do we find reversionary rights? Does anybody remember? Where do we find reversionary rights? One is if the condition is not followed. Very good. And the other one? Where else do we find reversionary rights? Anybody else? Anybody else knows where we can find reversionary rights? Oh, there you go. Verona and Fabiola wrote life estate. Very good. Yes. In life estate, we find reversionary rights where the property is yours as long as, right? So, David, a few weeks ago, I said the property is yours as long as you keep it for hospital purposes. Remember? Right. So, if you change the purpose of that property, there's a reversionary interest. It returns back to me, right? If I say the property is yours for as long as you're alive, there's, again, a reversionary interest. As long as you're alive, the property is yours. Once you die, it reverts back to me. So those are reversionary interests. Now, in terms of leases, you always have a reversionary interest. See, in the freehold estate, it could be fee simple where the property is yours, that's it, right? And it doesn't revert, it can pass along to your heirs. Or it could be fee determinable, or it can be life estate. right? So those are the two ways that has reversionary interest. But a lease is always reversionary, because as soon as your lease ends, who does the property return to? The owner, okay? So like the grantor of a life estate, the grantor of a leasehold estate retains the future interest. So the property for now is yours. You can use it. You can enjoy it. You use it in any legal manner. You can exclude whoever you want except the landlord with within reason, right? But at the end of the term of the lease, when it expires or when we give notice to each other, I get the property back. So there's always a reversionary interest when it comes to rentals. All right. As I was saying, you can exclude certain people, but if the landlord has an emergency, I might be able to enter. So you can exclude me. But again, if there's an emergency, I can enter the property. Or if I have your consent giving enough notice. So I'll tell you, hey, tomorrow I need to go into the property. Is that okay? And if you say yes, great. Okay. So only after giving proper notice. If you abandoned or surrendered the property, that's it. I'm in. Or if I have a court order for eviction, for instance, to enter the property, or for any other reason that I might feel it will be deemed an emergency, and I get an emergency petition to get into the property. Okay. Likewise, the landlord has the right to expect prompt payment of rent and adherence to building rules. So as a tenant, can you do whatever you want? No, there are certain conditions. At the end of the lease term, the landlord has the right to retake possession of the premises, reversionary interest, right? And in case of a tenant breach or default, the landlord has the right to pursue the remedies provided by law, such as eviction, to take possession. Yvette, again, it goes back to state law in New Jersey. If I can prove that you're clearly away for more than 7 business days, I might be able to regain access to the property. But again, not without a court decision. I cannot just go in. So I have to prove that you're no longer there. I don't have, if you're on vacation is one thing, but if I can prove that you clearly abandoned the property, right, then I might be able to enter it. So Francialia just said what needed to be said, and I just restated what she wrote. Okay. Responsibilities. What do I mean responsibilities? The tenant has all the responsibilities, right? Right? No. So a landlord is expected to deliver a property that is habitable. Okay? It's an implied warranty of habitability. What does that mean? It must be in good conditions. It must be in livable conditions. So if I provide the heating, then I must keep the heating. If I provide the cooling, electrical, and plumbing systems in good working condition. I must keep the floors, stairways, and railings safe and in good repair. Provide pest control as needed, right? And repair roof leaks and broken windows promptly. So anything that could endanger your life, health, or safety, right? I must repair immediately. Only what endangers life, health, or safety. So those must be taken care of immediately. Francielli has a question. I think we're going to be able to do 10 chapters. What do you think? Okay. Great question. Let's go to Francielli's question right now. Okay. Come on, Stephanie. I was gonna let me block, so it's this way. That way. I don't even know. Okay, there you go. All right. So the question was, if the boiler or heat stop working, how long does the landlord have to fix it? Okay. So it actually depends. It actually depends. let's think about the heat. If you're in the middle of summer, is it an essential? Is it going to endanger your life, health, or safety? Probably not. The boiler, maybe, so you can take your showers and all that stuff, maybe. But if you're in the middle of winter, right? If you're in the middle of winter and the boiler or the heat stops working, what do you think is a reasonable time to fix? Right? We're going to go with this answer, ASAP, right? And depending on which state you're at, ASAP means within 24 hours, right? Because longer than that, you become a popsicle, right? So the tenant in certain states has the right to repair and deduct, or has the right to withhold rent and move somewhere else temporarily until the condition, the reason or the condition to leave is fixed. So New Jersey, for instance, allows you to do that. Yep. You don't fix it, that's it. I'm moving out temporarily. If after a certain period of time you don't fix it altogether, then we have something called constructive eviction, which is me telling you, hey, landlord, it's been great, but you don't fix it, you breach the agreement, the habitable agreement. So I'm out. And I don't pay you anymore, and you have to return to me what's mine, which is the security deposit. So that's a constructive eviction. The owner depends on someone else to provide the work. On who? Your favorite contractor? That's not an excuse when it's cold. Like I have my preferred contractors, okay? I have my preferred contractors. If they're not available in a state of emergency, like no heat in the middle of winter, then I have to right away attempt to get another one to fix right away, or provide a solution for my tenants. Because again, it endangers life, health, or safety of my tenants. Okay? If there's a steep set of stairs without railing, isn't that an offense? It could be. But that will come down to municipality now. So Robin, I would ask your municipality, a city inspector, to check whatever the building code is, because that goes down to building code. Elena, what can the city do in terms of? And Franciali, so what it is a time frame from one. Oh, in the state of New Jersey, if there's a time frame, they just say reasonable, within a reasonable time frame. So again, it goes back to what is the emergency, right? So what do you think is reasonable when it comes to winter time and no heat? ASAP, right? So that's what we're talking about. And ASAP, well, my contractor is not available until next week. Do you think that's reasonable? Right? No, it's not. So if your contractor is not available, find another one right away, or again, provide a solution for your tenants. Elena, heat. Let me see the question again. What can the city do if there's no heat? So it depends. If you make a complaint, because tenants, guys, you need to make complaints to the Department of Community Affairs. At least here in New Jersey, that's how it is. Department of Community Affairs, and then they'll take certain actions. If there's no heat, then they'll direct you on what to do. But at least you put a complaint, right? But they'll direct you on what to do. If you should get an attorney and move out, called a constructive eviction, as I'll talk about, or if you should just sue or withhold rent. They'll give you some type of advice. The problem is they cannot give you legal advice. That will be unauthorized practice of law. But they can give you suggestions of where to go get that advice. And they'll give you the statutes of the state and the city. Can the city make you do something? Depends on what it is. They can actually close down the apartment. If it's something, again, that endangers life, health, or safety, they can close down the property, right? Because it's dangerous. If it's infestation, if it's any type of pest issue that you need to address, they can condemn it and make it hazardous. So they will shut down until you fix it. But as far as the tenant itself, they don't impose penalties for you to deal with a tenant. That's a landlord-tenant court. Okay? Penalties with your house is one thing. All right, what do we have here? Landra, my boiler went out in December and landlord tried to say I did not need heat. Who needs heat in December? Right? It was like 70 degrees in December. What's wrong with you, Landra? Like, seriously. Not like you had a white Christmas. It was hot. Anyway. Yeah, it's for those, these rules are for those types of landlords. You could have done something. What if the landlord doesn't want to fix? Again, certain states, like state of New Jersey, allow you to repair and deduct. So if it is something that's essential, that could cause or endanger life, health, and safety, then you can repair and deduct. Make sure you do repair before you deduct. Let's start with that. And second, make sure you do this stuff with advice of a lawyer. Some legal advice before you start doing something and then don't have a return. So the same way I notify my tenants right away in writing through my attorney, I prefer to pay $100, let's say, for an attorney to write a letter, right? But I'm saving myself thousands of dollars of the outcome, right? You should do the same the opposite way. You should have an attorney and say, hey, here's the issue. Can you send a letter to my landlord? Make sure you have everything in writing. Remember we talked about putting things in writing? Make sure everything is in writing, all notifications. Okay. All right, next. Here we have tenants' rights and responsibilities. What are the rights that the tenant has? Like I said, you have the right to quiet enjoyment, so you can exclude people, keep your privacy. The right to use the property in any legal manner, right? The right the right of possession, so to be there as well. Now, a tenant may be able to take any of the following actions if the landlord fails to correct the problem. We just said that. You can move out without liability for back rent or unexpired portion of the lease. Consult an attorney. You may refer the problem to mediation, arbitration, or small claims court. So you start off with a complaint to the Department of Community Affairs, as I was saying, and you can go all the way to court. And after giving the owner written notification of an emergency situation, call a professional repair person and deduct the cost from the next month's rent, depending on state law. New Jersey does allow you to do this, any of these actually, okay? But every state has different rules. So we'll talk about that in all the states' portions. Okay? What is the tenant's responsibility? Well, depending on the state law, generally, the tenant must, of course, pay rent on time. That's one of them. Follow the rules and regulations that are set out by the landlord. Give a 30-day notice when terminating a month-to-month lease. Return all door and mailbox keys when leaving the property. Leave the unit in as clean condition as it was when the start of the lease. Keep the unit clean and sanitary. Dispose of all rubbish, garbage, and other waste in a sanitary manner. Use and operate all electrical, gas, plumbing, and fixtures properly. Yeah, you cannot use and abuse. You have to maintain. If I know that it was your damage as a tenant, I can impose the repair on you. You have to refrain from destroying. You have to prevent others from destroying, and use the property and rooms only for their intended purposes. Now, I talked about actual eviction, and I talked about constructive eviction. The actual eviction means that you breached the contract, you as a tenant. You as a tenant breached the contract. Constructive eviction means the landlord breached the contract. So actual eviction is the landlord trying to kick you out. Constructive eviction is you evict yourself. So it's where you're saying, hey, I'm separating from the property, because that's where the eviction is. I'm separating from the property, right? So I'm out. It's a dispossess. I'm out of the property. And then telling the landlord, I'm no longer responsible for the terms of the lease. The lease becomes void. Why? Because the premises are unfit. The property is unfit for human habitation, whatever the situation might be. Okay? So you evict yourself is when you let the landlord know, of course in writing, that property, they've breached the agreement of habitability, and you're out. That's it. We're on this question is coming through. Okay. Is foreclosure considered an actual eviction? Eviction is landlord-tenant. Foreclosure is the bank enforcing a lien. In fact, we can foreclose on the property and the owner is still there. So if that's the case, we have to take a separate action for eviction, right? Or ejectment, a separate action to get the owner, the previous owner, out of the property. So foreclosure is simply saying, you owe me money, I'm taking the house. That's what it is. Simple as that. Eviction is I have a tenant or somebody unwanted on the property, and I have to take action to remove them. Simple. Okay, so it's two separate things. Foreclosure is enforcing a lien. I want to get paid. Eviction is you're unwanted. Why are you still here? Let me kick you out. So sometimes eviction, like I said, happens after foreclosure. Or, depending on where you are, the sheriff just goes there and says, get out. Anyway, actions. Some actions need to be taken, and it depends on how the state handles it. Okay, termination of the lease. Why would you terminate the lease? Maybe it ended, we never renewed, right? Maybe it ended because we performed all the agreement, what we had agreed originally. It could end by agreement where I'm saying, hey, I can't stay any longer. And you say, sure, no problem. So mutual agreement. Abandonment, we just talked about it, while I walk away, and now you might have the rights to get back into the property. A lease expires by default or breach, so either actual eviction or constructive eviction will happen at this point. Obviously, before we take any actions against you, we must give proper notice, meaning I'm letting you know that for this reason or that reason, right? I'm letting you know you have to leave. The most common notice is, hey, your lease is about to expire, or it's a month from now I need it. That's the most common one, right? Depending on the state, you might have to give notice if somebody does not pay, or you might not have to give notice if somebody does not pay the rent, okay? For destruction, you have to give notice. Hey, listen, you've been destroying the property. If you keep on doing that, and if you don't fix, I'm going to give you 3 business days as an example. I'm going to give you 3 business days. If you don't fix whatever you destroyed, then I'm going to have to go to court against you and file for actual eviction. Condemnation. Well, it might terminate the lease as well if the government is taking the property away from you, right? Then nobody can stay there. So that's condemnation is for eminent domain. Foreclosure, again. Foreclosure actions terminate the lease obligation to whom? The lease obligation to the previous owner. All right, there's something I want to clear here. Most states have what's called the Anti-Foreclosure Act or something similar. Most states have a rule that says tenants cannot be kicked out, but the previous lease ended with the previous owner. As long as you keep on paying the new owner, they might not be able to kick you out, as long as you're willing to pay. So if I stop paying on the house, I'm going to go into foreclosure, right? If I have tenants there, is it the tenant's fault that I'm not paying? No. The tenant's obligation is to keep on paying me until foreclosure concludes, because I'm still the owner of record. So you have to keep on paying me, right? If you, the tenant, can prove that you always paid me, right? Then you are a lawful tenant. Let's put it like that. You're a lawful tenant. So being a lawful tenant, the new owner might not have any rights, again, depending on the state law, might not have any rights to kick you out or increase the rent until the anniversary of your actual lease. You guys got it? So foreclosure terminates the lease obligation to the previous landlord. This one's obvious, right? Where am I going to collect? Can't. So death obviously terminates any lease. Hold on. Abandonment is constructive eviction. No. Abandonment, you might still have obligations. You might still have obligations. So if we have a 1-year lease, you have a 12-month lease and you leave 6 months later, right? You abandon at the 6th month. You're still liable for the payments here. So just walking away doesn't mean you walk away from the terms of the lease. Constructive eviction is where you're telling the landlord, hey, landlord, it's leaking. There's no heat. So I am not responsible for anything else. That's it. My term ends here. My term ends right here. You understand? So this is constructive eviction, is where we finished right there. That's it. Okay, so I answered that. Francielli, in case of death of the name on the contract, family is not allowed to keep the contract. Okay, so great question. Here's the thing. If there, when it comes to death, if there's more people on the lease, then traditionally, again, every state has their own rules, but let's say there's 2 of us and 1 of us dies. Of course, I'm the survivor. I'm gonna have to let the landlord know one of 2 things. It's either, hey, don't worry, I can still pay the rent and I'll continue, or within a certain amount of time, whatever the law provides, here in New Jersey is 90 days. Within 90 days, I have to tell the landlord, hey, listen, unfortunately, there was 2 of us. Now there's only 1 because the person that was here with me passed away. So it makes it difficult for me to keep up with the obligation. The landlord cannot enforce anything. Okay? You got it? So the landlord will have to end the agreement because it was just 2 of us. Now there's 1. Makes it difficult for me to pay. Obligation is over. All right. Next, security deposits. We already talked about that in the beginning of the property management, so I'm going to skip that. Uniform Landlord, Residential Landlord Tenant Act. Now, this is something that was created as a standard, as it says, uniform across the United States. So every state takes some type of action based on this act and recreate it to their own statutes and regulations, whatever applies to that state, right? So what they want to say with each lease is that the lease contains the full lease term, the full rental amount, so what is expected, what is a security deposit, and what you're supposed to do with a security deposit. Landlord access. Can the landlord come into the property? And the answer is written right there in landlord access, whether you can come in with 24-hour notice or 48-hour notice, or in case of emergency. So the Uniform Residential Landlord Tenant Lease will stipulate standards, right, of access. Procedures for default and eviction, which every state has enacted as well. So here in New Jersey, we have something called the Truth in Renting Act, and it explains causes for eviction. Why would I be able to evict you as a tenant? And also as a tenant what you should expect of me. So that's all going to be both in the lease and in that booklet. And of course, in the booklet, you have obligations of landlord and tenant. All right, let's see here. We have a question. Would you need a new contract in case the person wants to stay? There might be an amendment stating that, so we're talking about when somebody dies. There might be an amendment to the contract that says there was 2 people, now there's 1. So we remove 1 person. Elaine, are you trying to get into the camera? I just saw your whole forehead on the camera. I don't know if that's what you were trying to do. You cannot come to this side. We do still have the COVID prevention here. I cannot allow anybody here. Your dog's on your side. That's funny. Jeff, move. All right. Next. Sorry, I had to. See, I knew it. Verona, can you write your own clause on the lease, like a landlord accessing monthly? Oof. Monthly? You really don't trust your tenants, do you? Monthly? You can if you want. Like every month I can access. As long as I give you 24-hour notice. Sure. I would not rent from you. But you coming every month into my property. No, but can you, like, for instance, what I have is in my standard lease is 6 months usually, unless there's an emergency. Every 6 months I'm entitled to check the property. Okay, as long as I give at least 24-hour notice, and I cannot enter without the tenant's permission. So, yep, there you go. All right, next we have management business. A lot of the stuff we already talked about, right? There's different types of managements. It could be leasing, asset management, corporate property management, resort management. So unlimited opportunities for you to be a manager. You definitely have to secure the business, you have to have some type of management plan. It's like having a business plan of what you intend to do. And this I'm just going to go over real quick. Professional development, very important, guys. We're done, but very important. I keep on saying this. If you intend to go into a particular niche, for instance, if you want to be a property manager, get the CPM, which is a certified property manager certification you get from the IREM, Institute of Real Estate Managers, right? Being part of these associations will also help you get other designations, but it helps you, being part of any of these, it helps you by sharing resources, by figuring out, hey, what worked for you might work for me, or hey, it didn't work for me. What was your experience with this type of tenant, or in this type of situation? So it's a great thing being part of associations or clubs. It's a great thing for you to share knowledge. Okay. Does anybody have any question when it comes to this chapter, property management, leases? A lot of this was repeated, as you guys saw. A lot of it was repeated. So do you have any questions before we break? No questions? Going once. Going twice. I'm speaking very low so I can let Chris sleep, you know. Poor guy. He's 24/7 taking care of the property before the babies come in. All right, guys. So if there's no questions, it is now 7:35, guys. 10 minutes. 7:45. We will be back. See you guys in a bit.